Hi everyone, welcome to day 3 of English 101. Today we're going to be talking a lot about showing versus telling. So thank you guys for again keeping up with the journals. Again, they're free writes every day. It's under the journal function, so make sure that you are responding. I'll have up free write 2, 3, 4, or 2 is already up because you did it yesterday. So just make sure you're keeping up with those and with the videos. Those are everyday activities. Okay, so showing versus telling. I asked you guys to read a couple of documents for today. And the documents or the reading material is going to be grouped in the folder that, or the unit that we are discussing. So hopefully you can access those easily. And please, anytime you have a question about where something's located on eCampus, or if you're worried that something didn't go through, just send me an email. I will respond very quickly, and I want to make sure I'm being clear with my instruction. So the showing versus telling folder is what you accessed to get to the two activities. One is a PowerPoint presentation and one's just a couple of sentence groupings. So in yesterday's video, we looked at the sentence groupings, but we didn't have time to get through them all. So we're going to take another look at those. In this activity, I want you to read both sentences, and there are 3 bundles, and then decide which sentence is showing and which sentence is telling. Before you read them, let's remind ourselves what showing and telling is. How would you describe telling to someone? What would you say? Telling is the bare bones of a story. Point A to point B. Showing is kind of like decoration. It's making the story more accessible. It's making it more fun. It's adding those details. So the 5 senses, again, I cannot stress enough. The 5 senses is your gateway to showing versus telling. In your papers, especially the narrative paper, this unit's paper, showing will be more important than telling, okay? And like I said in the first video, in your conclusion, when you're talking about change and resolution, that's when telling is really more important than showing, okay? So I'll give you a little bit to read these 2 sentences and think to yourself which one's showing, which one's telling. Okay, so if you said this sentence is showing, then you're correct. And this sentence is obviously telling. Why? What specific details make this sentence showing over telling? My response would be things like bitter ice and dazzling frost. So it's a specific type of cold. 2 specific types. There are also adjectives, bitter, dazzling. Specifically, where was the ice? It was in her nose and mouth. So when you're reading it, or when your reader's reading your papers, your story, especially for writing response 1, which I will address a little bit more in the next video, the reader can be placed more specifically in your shoes. So the reader's supposed to be standing side by side with you as you're experiencing things in your own life. This sentence here, the telling one, does have an adjective. It's just these in the first sentence are more effective. So the temperature had fallen overnight, and the heavy frost reflected the sun's rays brightly. So it does have an adverb as well, but this one would be the stronger sentence. Let's move on to the next bundle of sentences. Again, read them and think which is showing and which is telling. So this one might be a little easier because normally showing involves more words, just out of descriptive purposes. So, spoiler, the bottom sentence is the showing sentence. And what specific details would you pull out if I asked you, how is it showing? What is it showing? So again, some adjectives, but also a really strong verb choice. Anytime you use an active verb, dangled from his belt, not just was hanging from his belt, this is more descriptive, more specific. It's stronger than a be verb or the verb had, have, or has. So avoid be verbs like was, is, are, and avoid had, have, has. Use more active verbs, okay? The action of bowing, right? Okay, so there are also more adjectives here and specific details. So the specificity is really what's going to help your stories in your paper. Let's move on to the last bundle. I think you're getting the concepts. Go ahead and read them, and which is showing, which is telling. Okay, so which sentence would you guys say is showing? This one might be a little bit harder, but hopefully you're getting the concepts. This is the showing sentence. Why? Again, what detail would you pick out? So when you're thinking about the details, think about the things that you really remember when you leave the story. So I remembered the tweed jacket. I also remembered the smell of leather and horse on the skin of his wrist. On the skin of his wrist is an interesting thing because, again, it's a specific type of body, or part of the body. He was trembling. This is a nice coupling. This is a telling sentence, but it's nicely coupled with all of these lengthy showing sentences. And then you have a short, to the point sentence. Okay? This sentence isn't bad. It's just something that it's mediocre, basically. It's just saying they're embracing and they're nervous. So it's talking about the pathos, again, that emotional appeal, but it's just not as an effective, concrete, or physical, or tangible way to describe an experience. Okay, so let's get out of this, and let's go ahead and, that was this activity, the first one. The second one is the PowerPoint. So go ahead and pull that up. Or if you're watching this video, just go ahead and watch. All of this on the first page, you do not need to read. You can if you want, but it's basically what is in the PowerPoint and also what I'll emphasize. All right, so this obviously instructs you, again, show, not tell, for the majority of your narrative paper, and we will use these skills, especially in the stakeholder sections as well. So, think about people, places, things. Remember back in elementary school, said what is a noun? Well, people, places, things. You're describing them. You're creating mental pictures for the reader. How I think of it is if an observer or the reader, the audience is walking next to me in my life, what would they see? Okay? The reason why I'm asking you to do this is for this very sentence. You're typically more engaged in the story whenever they're showing details and not telling. Think about how you describe maybe a football game or a party to someone, or a TV show. A lot of you watch Game of Thrones. That's great. Think about, and I'm not going to say any spoilers, so you don't have to plug your ears. Think about just how would you describe certain characters, okay? Like, how would you describe Jon Snow to somebody, or dragons to somebody, okay? All right, so this is just a nice revision of a telling sentence into a showing sentence. When I get your writing responses, which are due at 4 p.m. today, I will try to pick out specific parts like this. There'll be a telling sentence, I'm sure, and I will suggest some ways to create a showing sentence out of it, okay? And again, the writing response one today, which I will elaborate more on in the next video, is just really a draft of a draft, okay? So don't worry about it too much. Do your best on it, but I want to see what one of your stories is going to be. So for this activity, it was an unusual cat. This part here is the most showing part of the telling sentence. How was it unusual is what I would ask you in a paper. Then how you could respond is telling me specific details, parts of its body. Remember those other activities we just did? These are the yellow eyes glowing, stood on end, sharp pointed teeth, yowl like a tiger. So there's kind of beauty to these sentences, but also specificity. Okay. So the same activity here. How was the pizza delicious? So think about maybe the most delicious pizza you've ever had in your life, or whatever meal you like. So mozzarella cheese bubbled over, etc., etc. And this, ooh, so good. We talked a little bit about how you can add dialect, you can add dialogue, you can add vernacular. How do you speak regularly or with your friends? It doesn't have to be perfect English for these papers. Okay, so developing showing and telling. How do you actually do this other than me just saying, oh, think of the sensory details? These 6 things will help you really elaborate on showing and telling. So who are the characters in your story? You are obviously the main character of the narrative paper. Who are you with though? Who are you having conversations with? You can include dialogue. I highly recommend it. I'm going to attach, or I've already uploaded a couple sample papers that use dialogue. So what are you guys saying? Don't just say we talked about football. Give us the dialogue. What are you thinking? How do you respond to this reaction? This might be more helpful in the conclusion part. What are you doing? Think of those active verbs, not using the be verb or has, had, have. Description. Again, this is more sensory detail stuff. How do other characters react? And why is that important? That's the biggest question. All right, so these are a couple of guided activities. I'm not assigning them because you already have enough work to do, but this chart might be interesting. You might choose one thing for you to focus on in your story. So you get to know a character by what he does. So how will your actions as a character define you? Instead of saying I'm a quirky nerd who likes to watch Game of Thrones because, you know, that's who I am. Put a moment of going to a Game of Thrones party or a finale showing, okay? What kind of food was there? What does it smell like? Are people screaming at the television? Probably. All right? So these are a couple other examples, and then I'm not going to assign these sentences here, but if we had more time, you could probably take 1 or 2 and just transform it from a telling sentence into a showing sentence. I'd rather you focus on your own writing right now because, again, it's so fast-paced. But I hope you get the general gist of showing versus telling. And this chart might be a good way to start, as well as these 6 things here and the 5 senses. Okay? So that's it for this video. I want you guys to go ahead and watch the second video for today. I will talk about theme and what specifically you should write in your writing response. I know I've sent out that email yesterday kind of detailing some things, but the writing response is due at 4 p.m. today. Don't make it late, and we'll look at a few more sample papers. All right, see you then.